I think just acknowledging the fact that it is what it is. You made the mistakes, and either like you can't control it, or you can control it, and what are you gonna do about it?
How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Driven. In today's episode, we're going to be discussing a topic that you and I have committed, and I know a lot of people have also done, which is mistakes. And the reason why we're discussing it is because I know myself when I was younger, when I ever did a mistake, I always used to dwell on it. I always used to think, and it would take me a while to just get over that mistake. For example, like even the small things, like if I lost the key, like, man, I gotta, like I lost the key, now I gotta do this and that. And that's just on the small end. But I know as we got into business, we've made mistakes along the way. And one of the questions that I have, will the mistakes I've done, or better yet said, will the mistakes from my past hold me back from my future?
For me personally, I think it's how you look at it. Because I think... I'll speak on my personal end. I look at the mistakes that I've made in the past, and I honestly wouldn't change them, because I think they've brought me and you, and I think both of our mistakes have brought us to where we currently are at right now. And so I think it's just the way that you look at the mistakes that you've made. In fact, I'm personally grateful for the mistakes that we made, because then making those back then when we were at a smaller stage definitely helped us learn those lessons, the same lessons that we would have learned at a bigger stage, where if we made those mistakes that we made back then, I don't think we would have been able to come back financially. I think we would have gone bankrupt if we made those same mistakes. And so just at least it's the way that you perceive them. I always think mistakes are not that you should want to make mistakes, but definitely like the mistakes that you do make, because we will all make mistakes. We look at them and we understand why that happened, and take it as a learning lesson.
But I also know with that there's different type of mistakes.
Yes,
I know one of the mistakes that you're referring to, which I also agree that some people should make, is the small mistakes when it comes to business. Pretty much getting over the learning curve. If you're going into business, like let's just say you're going into a service, dealing with customers, setting up your prices, you're gonna make mistakes early on. You're either gonna set your prices too high, or you're gonna set your prices too low. So those mistakes, yes, I agree, commit them. But I know there's also bigger mistakes. When I do commit those bigger mistakes, like for example, I do something, I know we've committed those mistakes where we got ourselves into debt, we got ourselves into 80K debt. So then how do you move past those big mistakes where it's going to take a long time to just get over it?
I know it can be daunting just by, you saying we were 80,000 in debt. I know it can be daunting. I mean, it's kind of like, it is what it is. Like, it happened. There's like really no going, like once you make them, it is what it is. Like that's something that you cannot change.
Yep.
I mean, you could avoid it in the future, those type of mistakes, but that is something you cannot change. And so once you understand that it happened, now what? Like, I think you should ask yourself, now what? And I think just, after the fact, just seeing, what is it that I need to do either to correct them or to not make the same mistakes. And so like once you acknowledge that those mistakes happen and that's something that you cannot control, just work on the things that you can control. So for example, like when we went to $80,000 in debt, we weren't saying, we thought back and we were thinking, oh fuck man, we probably shouldn't do this, like, we fucked up and whatnot. But then like were we like pondering on that? I mean, the payments definitely, like, they were still there.
Yep.
We still needed to make the payments. I remember at one point we were paying, I think, almost $3,500 in just pure loan payments.
Yep.
And so that was interesting.
It was.
And so, but we weren't like, so we were more than just looking back at the mistake and feeling bad or sad for ourselves. I think we were, okay, you have to get a job, I have to get a job. And we were still currently running the business. And so like, the money that was coming in from the business, it would, pay for like the loans. And then also our income that we had at our own jobs would, will pay for, our basic necessities, but also towards the loans. And so we acknowledge the mistakes. We, it is what it is, but then it's kind of like, what now? What do I do now? And that's pretty much how we overcame them. And so I think that's just very important. Like, the mistakes that happen, you cannot control that anymore. Yeah. Like, you had to, I think we had to understand that, like, it happened, like, so, but now what? And so from that, knowing that you made those mistakes and you can't change that, it's just, moving forward, like what is it that you can do to either like either correct, you know, the things that happened or the outcome from those mistakes, or if, you know, it was just a mistake where, you know, nothing can really change. It's, you know, how, you know, just what are you gonna do next? And so I think, at least for me, that's the easiest way to think of the mistakes that we've made and how to overcome them. It's just, you know, there's things you can't control. Don't worry about them. Understand and why that, you know, why those mistakes happen.
I also know, well, I heard this phrase. I heard a phrase, but I know it's easier said than done.
Yeah.
But going back to the phrase I heard is that if it's within your control to change that mistake, or, you know, just to move past it, then why are you going to worry about it? Because your actions that you do going forward are going to, you know, you're going to be able to fix that mistake if you made that mistake. If it's out of your control, where like, damn, like I fucked up so bad, like there's nothing you're going to be able to do that's going to be able to fix it or change it. So why are you going to worry about it? And to this day, I still use that phrase, like even with anything, like any situation, it's not necessarily my mistake or just anything that's going around me. If I could control it, why am I going to worry about it? Because the actions I'm going to do are going to fix it. And if I can't, for whatever reason, fix it, then, I mean, it's out of my control. So it's just moving forward. Yeah. Is there anything that people could do? Because I know, like, when you're young, like I mentioned, it's easier said than done. But when you're young, it's like, it's a lot harder.
Yeah, and I know it comes with the mindset and experience. And so one of the things that I think taught us a lot, it's just doing. It's harder. Like, I know it's easier said than done, but just doing and living through things. Because I know an alternative, and a lot of people, you know, they read self-improvement, which we have. We are currently doing that. A lot of books in this to kind of like help you mentally and whatnot. Which I'm not saying it in a bad way, because we still read books, but I think just by you know, just going through those things and understanding, you know, there's things you can't control and can't control. And so just, you know, just once you understand that, I think, and the phrase that, and the quote that you had said, I think, you know, why either way, you know, whether you can control it or can't control it, you know, it kind of, it is what it is. You're either going to fix it or you can't fix it. And so, like, it is what it is. And so once we understand that, I think it'll become easier to you know, move past those mistakes. Yeah. But what about you? Like, I guess you use that quote, right? To kind of help you move past the mistakes. But is there anything else? Like, for example, you put your, like, because you kind of also, I know it makes sense. That quote, it makes sense. But I know a lot of the times it might be harder for, like, for your 17-year-old self to kind of like, you know, you hear the quote and you understand it, but it's kind of like, what does it really mean? And so, like, if you had to kind of like, like, put it in terms of like that your 17-year-old self would understand and be able to implement, or at least move past the mistakes, like, what would you say?
I think more than anything, it's just catch yourself doing it. And by catch yourself, I mean just trying to be self-aware. It is really hard, and like you said, it's just by doing it, and, you know, like, as you practice more on it, just trying not to dwell on it, it'll get easier to just, you know, move on. But I think more than anything, it's just catching yourself, like, you know, like forcing yourself, like repeating, like you can repeat it to yourself in your head, like, man, I gotta move past on it. Like, if I control it, let's see what I could do. Like, it's just continuously, like, just trying to engrave that in your head by repeating it to yourself. That's, you know, how I've been able to do it. Just always trying to catch yourself. I know you mentioned that the little, and, you know, we agree that the little mistakes, if you can make them, like, to get over that learning curve, go ahead and do them. I mean, they're going to be small mistakes, but are there ways to avoid the bigger mistakes?
In a way, yes, because we've also learned this from people that are, like, you know, on social media, like bigger people that are in business, like Patrick Bet-David and the Hermosis, learning from other people's mistakes too. I think if we're able to, I think that's the fastest and best way to learn, is by learning from other people's mistakes. And so if we're able to kind of I think we can learn by watching the people who we want to be like,
Mm-hmm.
and then learning from them. And so like, and they'll probably tell you or say things that they've, the mistakes that they've made.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're able to learn from them, I think that's a lot better than you having to go through those mistakes and learning.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the best ways, just watching the people that you want to become like, and then seeing, the type of mistakes that they've made and learning from those.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's the easiest and fastest way to, not make any mistake. Was that your question?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the easiest and fastest way. They've even said themselves, like, it'll also speed up the process of where you want to go.
Yep.
If you learn from their mistakes rather
Yep.
than you making them and having to correct them and then having to go again.
Mm-hmm.
Learning from them, that's the fastest way also to achieve the goals that you want. And I think that's the best and easiest way.
No, definitely, I agree. And I think one thing I want to add is we're talking primarily about career-wise, business-wise, but I know sometimes we make mistakes in our personal lives.
Mm.
And I think the easiest way, like, yes, how you mentioned, is just looking at other people's mistakes and then just learning from it. But then also, like, I think before more than anything, it's just before you do something is asking yourself, like, what is the outcome of me doing the thing I'm about to do? Like, if I'm gonna, I think it goes back to, like, even when you said, I want to go all in on my business, I'm gonna mortgage my house,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna take out loans to do this. It's just, if you look at other people, some people have been successful doing that and some people haven't.
Yep.
But I think more than anything, if you want to do that, it's just really think about all the outcomes and all the possibilities and really sit down and ask yourself, what are the outcomes? What are the different possibilities that could happen? And based on that, it's just make your judgment, make your next move based on those things.
No, just kind of like what I had said, the easiest and best way is to avoid the mistakes, by learning from other people's mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
But then in case that, we do make the mistakes, I think just acknowledging the fact that it is what it is, you made the mistakes and either like you can't control it or you can control it, and, what are you going to do about it? Yep. And so I think once we realize that, there's really, once, the mistakes have, been made, just, understanding it happened,
Yep.
It is what it is, and, don't kick yourself over it. And just, what are you going to do about it? And I think that's just for me on my end that, the one thing that I wanted to emphasize, because that's at least the way that I've, overcome some of the mistakes that, I've made.
Yep.
But yeah, anything on your end?
No, that was pretty much it.
Yeah. So with that, in the comments down below, let us know any, what's the way that you overcome some of the mistakes that you've made. And so with that, that was another episode of Driven. My name is Juan.
My name is Alexis.
And we'll see you on the next one.